Good morning and welcome to BHF Radio. You're listening to me, Bhavini Makwana, and I am here with Barash.
Hello everyone, how are you?
How's everyone doing this morning? Thank you to Hiran and Mayaben for a fantastic bhajan hour. Well, on Saturday mornings it is an extended hour, so for the last 2 hours, and that's every Saturday morning. And yes, I did enjoy my birthday, thank you. And thank you for the shout out yesterday. It was lovely, thank you so much. I'm sure you may have heard, and if not, you may have been waking up to the news this morning, to the sad news that the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, has sadly passed away peacefully at Windsor Castle yesterday. He's aged 99 and passed away on the 9th of April, which was yesterday. And we would like to pay our condolences to the royal family and of course Her Majesty the Queen. Today we are talking about autism because it was World Autism Week on the starting from the week of the 29th of March to the 4th of April. So today joining me will be Chintal Kakaya. She is an occupational health therapist, but also is a mum to 2 children with one of her sons having autism. So she'll be sharing her own personal experiences, sharing what autism is, and just raising awareness of it in our South Asian community about how we can be a little bit more supportive once we know a little bit more about the condition, and of course anyone listening who may have a personal journey with them, sharing tips and advice for them. So before we bring Chintal on, we will be listening to the first track, which is called Ek Bin Din Jayega from the film Garam Garam.
एक दिन बिक जाएगा माटी के मोल, जग में रह जाएंगे प्यारे तेरे बोल। एक दिन बिक जाएगा माटी के मोल, जग में रह जाएंगे प्यारे तेरे बोल। तुझे के होठों को देकर अपने गीत, कोई निशानी छोड़ फिर दुनिया से डोल। एक दिन बिक जाएगा माटी के मोल, जग में रह जाएंगे प्यारे तेरे बोल। ला 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 ला। अनहोनी पथ में कांटे लाख बिछाए, होनी तो फिर भी बिछड़ा यार मिलाए। अनहोनी पथ में कांटे लाख बिछाए, होनी तो फिर भी बिछड़ा यार मिलाए। ये बिरहा ये दूरी तो पल की मजबूरी, फिर कोई दिल वाला काहे को घबराए। करम पम धारा जो बहती है मिलके रहती है, बहती धारा बन जा फिर दुनिया से डोल। एक दिन बिक जाएगा माटी के मोल, जग में रह जाएंगे प्यारे तेरे बोल। ला 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 पर्दे के पीछे बैठी सांवल गोरी थाम के तेरे मेरे मन की डोरी पर्दे के पीछे बैठी सांवल गोरी थाम के तेरे मेरे मन की डोरी ये डोरी ना छूटे ये बंधन ना टूटे भोर होने वाली है अब रहना है थोड़ी करम तम सर को झुकाए तू बैठा क्या है यार गोरी से नैना जोड़ फिर दुनिया से ढोल एक दिन बिक जाएगा माटी के मोल जग में रह जाएंगे प्यारे तेरे बोल तुझे के होठों को देकर अपने की कोई निशानी छोड़ फिर दुनिया से डोल एक दिन बिक जाएगा माटी के मोल जग में रह जाएंगे प्यारे तेरे बोल ला 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 ला
Welcome back. You're listening to BHF Radio, and I mentioned before this song that we are talking to Chintal Kakaya due to World Autism Week, which was the week before the 27th of March to the 4th of April. Now, Chintal has a son who has autism, and we'll be raising awareness of what is actually autism. But before we bring Chintal on, if anyone has any questions, any messages, or just wants to message in, you can do so by emailing me, Bhavini, at bhfradio.org.uk, or you can message directly via the BHF Radio app by going into dedications, and you can put your message straight to there. So, good morning, Chintal. Welcome back to BHF Radio. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Bhavini. I'm doing very well, and thank you so much for having me on again.
No, that's, thank you for coming on. I mean, before we start talking about autism and why we're talking about it, I mean, I just wanted to let our listeners know that last time we had Chintal back, on BHF Radio, we were talking about COVID because Chintal did contract COVID, and we were talking about her experience of that. But Chintal is also a holistic healer and coach, so perhaps we'll probably have her on sometime in the future. But today we are talking about autism because Chintal is a mom of two with one of her sons who has autism. So, Chintal, welcome. And what is autism?
Thanks, Bhavini. Good question. So we always hear of certain terms flying around, and I think just to understand the simplicity of what they mean really helps us to understand what it actually means. So autism, in the simplest way to explain, is it's a lifelong developmental disability. So it kind of affects individuals in the way they kind of communicate and socialize within society and the wider community. And it's kind of like our society and our community is very much what we call neurotypical, which is the likes of yourself, myself. We have everything around us that we can kind of be part of. And with individuals who have autism, the best way I explain it is it's just that their brains are wired slightly differently, so they see things very differently. And what you and I may find what you and I may experience something as being, oh yeah, that's absolutely fine. For example, going to a supermarket, an individual with autism will really struggle with that because it's very, very overwhelming for them. And, there's certain kind of behaviors and actions and habits and things like that they form, but also they're trying to understand our neurotypical world that we live in. So yeah, I mean, in brief, that's what autism is. It is lifelong, and it's is the developmental disability, that it just affects in how they kind of communicate and accept the world around them and communicate with everyone else.
Yeah, and I've heard, and I've got a couple of friends who are parents of autistic children, and I hear so often that sometimes it's mistaken for badly behaved children, like especially when it's detected in younger children. Oh, they're so naughty, or they were so misbehaved. Like, what signs or symptoms did you notice that kind of led you to seek kind of professional support, or make you think, oh, perhaps I need to look into this?
Yeah, so I mean, professionally, I'm an occupational therapist by profession, and I'm practicing in the NHS at the moment. But I predominantly work with adults, but I have kind of knowledge and skills from when I've worked in different placements. Now, when my son was around, probably coming up to a year or so as well, I noticed that he wasn't at the milestones that children should be at. So, when you go to your health visitor, or a health visitor visits you, you have your red book, and they'll say, by 9 months they should be doing this, and by 10 months they should be doing that, and they should be sitting this way, or whatever. Mm-hmm. What I then noticed was from probably around 10 months onwards, and I'm like, why is it when I go and pick him up from nursery, I'll see him and I'll find him in a corner away from all the other children, but he's happy and he's playing in the corner by himself. Yeah. So that was one of the things. And then the other thing that I noted was his kind of eating patterns. Like, no matter what I would cook or what I would give to him, it would just get thrown away. Like, he would just push it away. He would cry. And you couldn't understand what was going on. And like you said, a lot of people would just label it as naughty and say, oh, just leave it. If he's hungry, he'll eat. And I was like, something inside me just didn't sit right with that. I didn't feel right. And I was like, well, I can't let my child go hungry, but I feel there's something beyond that. And then a few of the really kind of affirming situations that happened was when I used to have people over for entertainment at my house. Yeah. That's when he would really have meltdowns. He would put fingers in his ears, he would cry, he would try and hide. He'd be really, really unsettled. And even if we were to attend, our Asian weddings, they're quite a grand affair, he would struggle. And that's when I started to pick up on certain patterns, and I started documenting them. And I was just taking videos of him as to how he was behaving, just so that I could try and put things like piecing a puzzle together, really, and also so that I had something concrete to kind of take to my GP or the health visitor and say, actually, you know what, look, something's not right. What led me to then obviously get in touch again with the health visitor was the fact that he wasn't really speaking, not even words. He was just making sounds. And apart from myself being able to understand him, nobody else could. Like, if any other family member was around, they would never understand what he's asking for. But I knew what certain hand gestures meant. I knew what certain points meant, between my husband and myself. We kind of knew what he was asking for. So that's when I started to piece things together more. And to be honest, above all, it was really my intuition and my gut instinct. Something was just from inside telling me something's not right and we need to get some support. And the first port of call was obviously I contacted my health visitor and said, look, he's not really speaking. Can you come and do the checks? And they said, we're due to come out and do his check, and we'll do it. And then they came and they said, yes, he's not speaking more than even 10 words or anything. And that started off some of that process where they then said, okay, we'll refer to speech therapy, but obviously waiting times and everything was long. And at that point, he was at nursery. So what I did was I had a chat with the nursery, the team there, and I said, look, this is what we're experiencing at home. Can you please tell us how he is at nursery? So they started collating information as well. And they were like, yeah, you're right. This is what he's presenting with. Like, he would stay away from other children. He'd be happy beside them, but he'd never get involved with other children and what they're playing with or anything like that. He'd just be happy on his own. And he would do a lot of kind of a whining cry, which, and that was his way of way of trying to say something, but he didn't know how to say things or express himself. Even eat like food, you know, I started to notice there was only literally a handful of things that he would eat, and that really worried me, because I'm like, oh my God, like he's not getting enough nutrition. But you know, as anxiety and stressful it was for me as well, I'm like, well, at least he's still eating. Even if it's 5 things he's eating, he's not getting bored of it. He's eating it, and he's still getting something, you know. But yeah, it's kind of important to know what is your child's behaviors, what are their patterns, and without labeling and without judging them and saying, oh, he's just being naughty, or he's just being, you know, and don't get me wrong, I put my hands up a couple of times. I did that, and I thought, oh, he's just being maybe a little bit awkward, or I need to do a bit more discipline with him. But that's when I started to realize that he wasn't understanding that either, you know.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started to look into it a bit more. And then I had an appointment with my GP with all the evidence with me, and I said, you know, this is exactly where we are at, and I really need some support and help. And yeah, that's how kind of like the process started.
Yeah, and I think that's really important what you've highlighted, that, you know, the difference between a naughty child, an awkward child, but then you documented that, you know, you started noticing things and started writing it down. So when you do eventually get to that stage where you think, okay, I might need to get professional support, you had that. Because I think for some, like, you know, you attend professional appointments and they ask you questions, and it's only then your mind goes blank, or you can't finger point certain things. So I think that's a great tip that you've shared. I mean, how was it like for you as a family coming to terms with this? You know, how was it kind of taken?
So, because I kind of knew he was presenting with the autistic traits and the behaviour patterns that led to it, although I think at that point I was very much still functioning on the adrenaline side of things, you know, right, I wanted to do what was best for my child and get the right support and everything. And I remember attending the appointment with the consultant at the Child Development Centre. Now, one thing I will say, you know, getting the tests and everything and the diagnosis, it's not an overnight fix. I mean, for us, I knew when he was 18 months, and he finally got diagnosed when he was 5. You know, it's a long process. Things have changed a lot. You know, I know there's a lot more different pathways and support out there that will help identify these things from an earlier stage. But this is when I was going through it. It was, you know, referral to educational psychologists from, because my son at that point was transitioning between private nursery to a mainstream school starting reception. So a lot of, even with the mainstream school, when I explained to them, this is what we're presenting with at home and stuff, they said, don't worry, we will see how he is when he comes in. And they did the same thing. And that's when they said, you know what, you're doing X, Y, Z at home. This is all the evidence you've collated. This is what we have observed of him at school. And therefore, you know, we do feel that he really would benefit from a referral onwards to educational psychologists. So when that whole process started, you know, that's when all the different teams started to get involved. So now you can see where I'm going with this, where it's not just, you know, yes, we had blood tests, we had everything, but it's not just one blood test that's going to determine, oh, your child has autism. So many different elements and factors involved in it itself. But the day I got the diagnosis, it felt like there was a whole load of weight that had lifted off my shoulder. I felt a very lonely journey at that point, because it was, I didn't feel that there was anyone around me that I could really speak to or talk to about this. But I was just more focused on what is right for my child. And that's when, you know, when I had the diagnosis given to me, I broke down, you know, and the consultant did say to me, she goes, you've come on your own. And I said, that's fine, just give me what needs to be said and I will accept it. I broke down because, one, I was, you know, grateful and I was proud that I persevered. Second, now I knew that he will get the right support he needs, and I will get the support that I need. And third, I can explain to the rest of the family, well, actually, you know what, all these things, this is the reason behind it. It's not about, and I had all of this stuff, it was about, oh, he'll talk late, don't worry, it will come to him. Or you need to go and do this fast, and you need to go and, donate X amount of money, and you need to do this, and don't get me wrong, I have my beliefs and I have my values within spiritual and cultural stuff. But when certain things don't match up for me, I use my gut instincts a lot to help me, guide me. That's when I was like, okay, now we know what we're dealing with. And, for me, it wasn't about having that label and that diagnosis for, oh, look, he's a child who has a disability. I use it more to empower and more to educate and inspire others as well. Because when I got that diagnosis, obviously, initially my husband was a bit skeptical about the whole thing. He was quite, I didn't think he really believed in it either. But when we got the diagnosis, spoke to him about everything, we then came collectively as a team to then support and to then share with the rest of our family. And to say, you know what, we accept he's our child. We accept him as he is. It doesn't make him any less lovable or more lovable or anything like that. We want to do the best to bring him into, to be accepted into a community and society where everybody should be seen equal. Yeah. But we have to adapt. So where it then led to that was we cut back a lot on our social gatherings. Because that was one area that Nishal really, really struggled with, and I didn't want to put him through a lot of that stress and unnecessary stress. Because one of the other things that we noted was when he used to get really stressed and he really cried, he was breaking capillaries in his face and his body, so he was coming out in blood spots everywhere.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that took a very long time to heal. So we looked at what is triggering him. Yeah. What we adapted the environment, our home environment. We had to keep things very simple, not overstimulation, to remove the overstimulation from it. Even when we're going out, and even, we would only really go to places where we knew the people we were meeting were accepting of us, who we are as a unit, not as individuals, but as a unit, and actually not have any judgment towards us. So, for example, if we needed to leave, they knew that that's fine. We didn't have to justify.
Yeah.
Those are the changes we made, and we stuck to those changes. So that initially, it was important to just eliminate what was really triggering him. Yeah. And then gently looking at what can we introduce that will help him to then be in a situation that was initially triggering him. So it was a long road, but everybody around us, I have to say, as soon as we started to explain and, say, look, this is the support we want. We don't want people telling us do this, do that. We want people to accept. We want people to understand and just be there to support us. If he's having a meltdown or if he's crying, he's not being naughty. So don't label him as naughty. It's just the environment, something's triggered him, and we need to just look at how to kind of really best handle him during that situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's great kind of tips that you've shared for anyone that might be listening as well. I want to go a bit more deep into that a bit later on. But before we do, I know there's, autism has a spectrum. I want to go to a quick track from the film Burfi, and then if we can sort of divulge more into the spectrum, because it's not, autism is just not a clear cut as this is what it is. It's...
No.
Everyone experiences quite differently. So let's hear the song from Burfi, and then we'll pick this conversation up.
इतनी सी हंसी, इतनी सी खुशी, इतना सा टुकड़ा चांद का, ख्वाबों के तिनकों से चल बनाए आशिया. इतनी सी हंसी, इतनी सी खुशी, इतना सा टुकड़ा चांद का, ख्वाबों के तिनकों से चल चार दीवारें फिर भी झरोके खिले बादलों के हो पर्दे शाखें हरी पंखा झले ना हो कोई टकरारे अरे मस्ती ठहाके चले प्यार के सिक्कों से महीने का खर्चा चले दबे दबे पाँव से आए हौले हौले जिंदगी होठों पे कुंडी चढ़ा के हम ताले लगा के चल गुमसुम तराने चुप के गाए आधी आधी बात ले आजा दिल की ये ज़मीं थोड़ा सा तेरा सा होगा थोड़ा मेरा भी होगा अपना ये आशिया इतनी सी हंसी इतनी सी खुशी इतना सा टुकड़ा चांद का ख्वाबों के तिनकों से चल बनाए आशिया इतनी सी हंसी इतनी सी खुशी इतना सा टुकड़ा चांद का ख्वाबों के तिनकों से चल बनाए आशिया इतनी सी हंसी इतनी सी खुशी इतना सा टुकड़ा चांद का ख्वाबों के तिनकों से चल बनाए आशिया चार दीवारें फिर भी झरोके खिले बादलों के हो पर्दे शाखें हरी पंखा झले ना हो कोई टकरारे अरे मस्ती ठहाके चले प्यार के सिक्कों से महीने का खर्चा चले चढ़ा के हम ताले लगा के चल गुमसुम तराने चुप के गाए आधी आधी बात ले आजा दिल की ये ज़मीं थोड़ा सा तेरा सा होगा थोड़ा मेरा भी होगा अपना ये आशिया इतनी सी हंसी इतनी सी खुशी इतना सा टुकड़ा चांद का ख्वाबों के तिनकों से चल बनाए आशिया.
Welcome back. That was the track Ashiya from the film Burfi. We have had a couple of messages. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so by emailing Bhavini at bhfradio.org.uk or through the dedication section in the BHF app. Today we are talking about autism. It was World Autism Week, 27th of March to the 4th of April, and today with me I've got Chintal Kakaya, who is a mother to her son who has autism, and we've just been learning about what is autism and how people with autism see the world. And she's just been sharing her personal experiences about her diagnosis of her son, the journey, and how they kind of manage normal things like attending events and how things are done differently. But then that's okay. The first message has come from Shilpa, who just wants to wish Chintal all the very best. She goes, you show so much courage and, you know, so much perseverance that you found your answers that you were searching for, and now you're living your life with your son, and hope the world is kinder to you.
Thank you, such a beautiful message.
Yeah, and the second one is from Dinesh, is from Dinesh, and saying, fantastic topic. My cousin's child is autistic, and he knows the challenges that our community have expressed, especially by labelling the kids naughty. They're not naughty, They just have a different way of expressing themselves, and we just should be a little bit patient of their needs. You're absolutely right, Dinesh, and thank you for messaging in. Chintal, so before we would hear that track, I wanted to find out more about the spectrum of autism. Like, could you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, so like you mentioned earlier, Bhavini, so autism, it's, again, look at it like you're opening up an umbrella, right? So you have one end to the other, and that's exactly like the whole spectrum. So you have autism can range from kind of mild to moderate to quite severe. Now, you may have come across phrases where you're saying somebody has Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
So Asperger's is an individual who is a high functioning autism. Like, they're really, really, academic, and their needs are very different to another individual who has autism. So Asperger's is more like high functioning. So they're functioning really well, and they still have autism. It's just that the way they do things, they may have certain or specific repetitive behaviors or anything. So that's kind of like, but that they're managing well in society with that high functioning. They may need very minimal support for them to manage. And then you have kind of like, you can have like the range goes from the level of needs that the individual has. Like, we all know that there's that severe where they're very, very dependent. So they have physical impairment, they can have sensory impairment, they can have, they're not able to live their life independently. They basically need full-time care and support.
Okay.
And you can also have kind of like your mid-range, which I know that's where kind of like my son sits in, where they can manage certain elements, which I'll go through those kind of elements and what I mean by that, but they can manage in society, but they do need quite a bit of support. So with him, for example, I always say, yes, I have a child who has autism who's walking and talking, because I think when it comes to disabilities, a lot of people always, as soon as you mention the word disability, they'll be like, oh, what physical disability you've got, and you're like, well, actually, there's a lot of non-physical disabilities that people have, and this is where there needs to be a lot more awareness raised, and autism can fit into that as well. So like, he's walking, so he has no physical disability, but his difficulties and his challenges are things like organization, processing of information. I cannot tell him, Nishul, can you go down to the shops, get some bread and milk, go to the post office and come back home. By the time he's left the door, he would have forgotten what I'd asked him to do. You have to be very specific, and I know with him, maximum 4 commands in one sentence is more than enough for him, and even that you have to repeat it 2 or 3 times in order for his brain to process that information and in order for him to physically carry out that action.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so it really, so for him, for example, he gets full one-to-one support in the high school. He's in a mainstream high school, which is great.
Yeah.
So again, he's in a mainstream high school with amongst other children, and he gets one-to-one support. So he has teaching assistants who then support him in class, where they break down the information even more so that he understands it. His speech therapist has been working with him for good few years now. So, autism is a spectrum. It's a wide spectrum, and it really affects, the way in which it kind of affects them is about how they are in their day-to-day life. Simple things that we can take for granted, such as, preparing simple breakfast, or using a fork and knife. He struggled with it. It took him 2 years to learn how to use a fork and knife. And that can be, if you're out in public and you see a child eating with their fingers and their hands, there's a lot of judgment around it sometimes. And they're like, oh, why are they eating like that? Have they not been taught manners? And it's like, well, no, it's because they struggle with coordination.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's just how the brain is functioning. You've got to practice these things for them to then be able to carry out that simple movement and task. And then it's also things like their personal care, washing, dressing, oral hygiene, all their day-to-day tasks that they have to do, packing their bag for school, for example. He has to go through it about 2 or 3 times. Have I got everything? I wouldn't have to think 2 or 3 times. I know that I've got my stuff to get out the door.
Mm-mm.
And this is where, it all fits in with what is the hidden aspects to all of this. It's not just about, oh yeah, he's talking, he's walking. Why are you worried? Worry is, for example, even when you're walking down the road with them, they may know that yes, it's a busy road, there's traffic, and you can have an accident, but because they're in their own bubble, they'll just carry on walking.
Okay.
They lack insight into that safety and awareness.
Mm.
And these are the things that they need support with, and that's why, for example, even with Nishu, he's 14, he always has to have support with him, because he will sometimes not think that, oh, actually it's the end of, it's a crossroad and I need to look at there's cars coming. He'll just carry on going. The cars will have to wait for him. But, so the spectrum is massive. It could be the mild, where it's affecting them in very minuscule way, where they can still manage, but with just a little bit of changes, maybe say at home that helps them, and at school that may help them. You may find that they need a little bit of time out zone or area that they can go to if things get too much for them. Again, given an example where Nishal is, in school, he knows that if things get too much or the playground gets too busy, it's too noisy, and that's one thing he can't handle, is a lot of noise.
Yeah.
One of the things that he uses is headphones, like noise cancelling headphones. And also he's got a room within their learning department that he can go to, or the library that he can go to, just to spend time by himself, to come away from it. So, the autism spectrum is a very, very broad spectrum, and you've got to look at, what elements are affected within that individual, and how can we then support them. Some of them, like I said, the moderate, the high end of autism is when they're functioning quite well, that actually, they are thriving, they don't need that much support, but they have different challenges.
Yeah.
And then you have the kind of middle range, and then you've got the kind of top end where they need full, 24-hour care, because it can also affect thinking, when you're thinking about your digestion. There's some children who have autism, or individuals who have autism also have other conditions like epilepsy, so there's so much more to it than just autism.
Yeah.
Because it is to do with your neurodevelopmental aspect of our body and function.
Yeah, we've just had a message come in from Rena to say she completely relates to everything you've said so far. She's got a daughter who's autistic, and some of the things she finds difficult, challenging, is dressing. So finding out, it says deciding on what to wear and what to eat. And she finds that, so she needs to factor in extra time when it comes to dressing and eating. We're going to go to another track, which is from the film Tara Zameen Par, which is called Bum Bum Bole. And then I want to learn more about, you shared a lot of tips already, but if anyone else is listening that possibly may not have gone through that stage of diagnosis but have picked up signs, like, what kind of signs or symptoms, what else you can sort of suggest, and also as a wider community, what can we do to be a bit more supportive instead of judging, as we're typically known to do. So let's listen to this track, and then we'll go into a bit that.
Chakaraka chicha cho chakaloram gando wando lakarakatam akko takko idigidigidigo idipai chiki chakacho gili gili mal sulu sulu mal makanaka hukubukure tukubukure chakalaka bikko chikko sili 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 go bagradum chiki chakacho.
देखो देखो क्या वो पेड़ है चादर ओढ़े या खड़ा कोई हे देखो देखो क्या वो पेड़ है चादर ओढ़े या खड़ा कोई बारिश है या आसमान ने छोड़ दिए हैं नल खुले कहीं हाँ हम जैसे देखे ये जहां है वैसा ही जैसी नजर अपनी खुल के सोचे आओ पंख जरा फैलाओ रंग नए बिखराओ चलो 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 नए ख्वाब बुन ले मस्ती में डोले बम बम बोले मस्ती में तू डोल रे बम बम बोले मस्ती में डोले बम बम बोले मस्ती में तू डोल रे भला मछलियां भी क्यों उड़ती नहीं ऐसे भी सोचो ना सोचो सूरज रोज नहाए या बाल भिगो के ये बुद्धू बनाए हमें ये सारे तारे टिमटिमाए या फिर गुस्से में कुछ बड़बड़ाते रहे खुल के सोचे आओ पंख जरा फैलाओ रंग नए बिखराओ चलो 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 नए ख्वाब बुन ले
Welcome back. That was the song Bum Bum Bole from the film Dara Zameen Par. A couple of messages to read out. Thank you to Arvind Bhai who's tuning in and wants to wish me a happy birthday for yesterday. Thank you Arvind Bhai, and says what a fantastic topic we're speaking about today. Thank you. And we've got another message from Meena Ben from London, who says, well done on discussing this very important topic. You know, it's great variety of topics you bring on every Saturday morning that we don't really talk about. So well done, and just wanted to say a big hello to Chintal. Thank you, Meena Ben. Welcome back, Chintal. We've got a few minutes left before we have to wrap it up, but I do want to ask, in terms of your experience and of Nishos, what advice would you like to share for anyone listening who may know someone who has autism, like their family, or just the general public, the wider community?
I think the biggest message from me would be don't judge, don't demand on how they should be doing things, because the journey for the individual and the parents is tough as it is. The best thing to do would be ask them, how can we support you? And, you know, just those questions will really help them feel that you're there for them without any judgment. Except, you know, just be open and accepting to a situation. So if a child, you're within the vicinity and the child, say, for example, is feeling upset about something or that, firstly, don't bribe them, because that irritates them even more. You've got to allow them to be and allow them to feel their emotions, and use language like, you know, I understand you. And it helps them a bit more, and giving them just a bit of time. I think the biggest thing would be just accept and adapt. And if you feel that, you know, I know may be questioning, I don't know whether my child has autism or not. You know, if you find that your child may be presenting with specific things, like one of the biggest signs and symptoms would be like sensory stuff. So, for example, if you're feeding them something they don't like it could be that a specific taste is they're not agreeing to it, or specific smells that triggers them, even touch, or even clothes. Like some children with autism hate labels because they find them really itchy. So there's loads and loads of signs and symptoms you can look out for. Definitely go on to your local autism support services. They've got, and even the National Autistic Care Society has a lot of information on the website. There's lots of different ways you can support these children and, parents as well. But yeah, I think the biggest message would be, please just stand back on the fence line, on the picket line, I'd say, and, just ask them, how can we support you? Just by taking one or two things away from them that you could do that's going to help them so they can focus on the child themselves, really.
Yeah, great tips. Thank you, Chintal. You recently, I watched a video that you recently took part in with your son, and I've got to say, I just thought it was a really, really well video made to raise awareness of autism. But you get to hear from the two children who feature in the video about what it's like for them, and I just think the more people who get to watch this, will just have a better understanding. Where can people find that video?
Yeah, so the purpose and the reason behind creating that video was, firstly for Autism Awareness Week, but also to really raise that awareness within our South Asian community. And I know Ruskin University is doing some research as well at the moment, because the uptake of diagnosis within the South Asian community is very low, and they're trying to identify what the reasons behind it. And I wanted to really empower and inspire the people out there, especially parents out there, that, there is no shame, there's no guilt, and mums, you've done nothing wrong if your child is being diagnosed with autism and stuff. I've been through it where I felt that I'd done something wrong in pregnancy and stuff. Please do not drop that guilt, just drop that guilt. There's nothing wrong you've done. As mums, we always want the best for our children as well. So the reason behind creating that video was to really share, raise awareness of the autism and stuff, and for you to hear the experiences of these children directly that are living with this condition and how they're thriving with the support that they get. So you will, Bhavini, I'm happy to share the video link with yourself so that you can share with your listeners. Alternatively, I am on Facebook. My Facebook business page is Chintal Kakaya, Holistic Healing and Transformation Coach. The video is available on there as well.
Thank you, and we will definitely share that on the Bolton Hindu Forum and Radio Facebook page. Chintal, thank you so much for coming on air this morning, talking about something so personal, yet explaining it so eloquently and honestly, sharing awareness of autism, but actually sharing what it's been like for you as a family, for your son. And I just hope that people listening out there could, can reach out if something resonates for them, but also equally people who may have autism already, their parents, their family, siblings as well, not forgetting other brothers and sisters, that you can get the right support available out there for you, because it is there, it is available. So thank you, Chintal, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, and really, really grateful for all the listeners tuning in and your lovely messages as well.
Thank you, take care.
Take care, Bhavini. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So we're going to go to our next track, which is All Is Well from the film 3 Idiots.
जब लाइफ हो आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल होठों को करके गोल होठों को करके गोल सीटी बजा के बोल जब लाइफ हो आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल होठों को करके गोल होठों को करके गोल सीटी बजा के बोल मुर्गी मुर्गी क्या जाने अंडे का क्या होगा अरे लाइफ मिलेगी या तवे पे फ्राई होगा कोई न जाने अपना फ्यूचर क्या होगा होठ घुमा सीढ़ी बजा के बोल भैया ऑरेंज मैन अरे भैया ऑरेंज मैन अरे चाचू ऑरेंज मैन अरे भैया ऑरेंज
कंफ्यूजन ही कंफ्यूजन है सॉल्यूशन कुछ पता नहीं सॉल्यूशन जो मिला तो सारा क्वेश्चन क्या था पता नहीं
दिल जो तेरा बात बात पे घबराए दिल पे रख के हाथ उसे तू फुसला ले दिल इडियट है प्यार से उसको समझा ले होठ घुमाओ सीढ़ी बजा के बोल भैया ऑरेंज मैन अरे भैया ऑरेंज मैन अरे चाचू ऑरेंज मैन अरे भैया ऑरेंज
स्कॉलरशिप की पी गया दारू हम तो फिर भी मिटा नहीं अगरबत्तियां राख हो गई गौर तो फिर भी दिखा नहीं
बकरा क्या जाने उसकी जान का क्या होगा सीख घुसेगी या साला की माँ होगा कोई न जाने अपना फ्यूचर क्या होगा तो होठ घुमा सीढ़ी बजा के बोल भैया ऑरेंज मैन अरे भैया ऑरेंज मैन अरे चाचू ऑरेंज मैन अरे भैया ऑरेंज मैन जब लाइफ हो आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल तो होठों को करके गोल होठों को करके गोल सीटी बजा के बोल मुर्गी क्या जाने अंडे का क्या होगा हर लाइफ मिलेगी या तवे पे फ्राई होगा कोई न जाने अपना फ्यूचर क्या होगा होठ घुमाओ सीढ़ी बजा के बोल मिल गया यस
Welcome back. That was the song All Is Well from the film 3 Idiots, and we've just had a couple of messages come through. Before I read them out, I just wanted to share, what fantastic messaging we've learnt today. Autism is a disability, but people with autism have so many capabilities, but they just do things differently, and us watching in should be just mindful of their way of doing things differently, how they adapt, not for us not to judge, just to be kind and just be friendly towards people doing things differently. I think sometimes we're so quick to judge, but I've learnt a lot of stuff this morning, and I'm hoping our listeners have too. Get to know the person with autism. They're just people like us. A message from Priya to say amazing that you're talking about autism today, fantastic show as always, and love to Chintal. I've had a message from my friends in Leicester wishing me a happy birthday. Thank you, Harry, and the kids and Jazz. And also we've got another message from my family wishing me a happy birthday. Thanks Mom, thanks Dad. And thanks to all my sisters and my nieces and nephews, too many to mention, but thank you so much. We will be back next week, every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. So next Saturday at 10 a.m. we'll be back on air with a different topic. So until then, keep safe. I know the new guidelines are coming into effect from Monday the 12th, but please be mindful of still maintaining distances, washing your hands and sanitizing and wearing your face mask. What's the last song?
And on that note, before we go, Bhavini, as you know, it was your birthday yesterday. So this song is a birthday song for you and also to anyone else who is celebrating their birthdays out there today.
Thank you. That's why I didn't know the last song. Thank you. Thanks
See you
everyone.
later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. बाद दिन ये आए, it's your birthday, so let me party. बाद दिन ये आए, it's your birthday, so let me party. Let's gather to cut the cake, cheers to your life, let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you, another great year for you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. बाद दिन ये आए, it's your birthday, so let me party. Let's gather to cut the cake, cheers to your life, let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you, another great year for you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Gather round and start to clap, clap, clap your hands and 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 clap, clap, clap. We pray for health, strength, and positivity. All the blessings to you. We hope for long life and prosperity. All good blessings to you. We wish you greatness in everything you do. All God's blessings to you. There is no one like you. We love you. बाद दिन ये आए, it's your birthday, so let me party. Let's gather to cut the cake, cheers to your life, let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you, another great year for you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Gather round and start to clap, clap, clap your hands and 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 clap, clap, clap. We pray for success and stability. All the blessings to you. We hope you enjoy this festivity. All good blessings to you. We wish you victory in everything you do. All God's blessings to you. There is no one like you. We love you. बाद दिन ये आए, it's your birthday, so let me party. Let's gather to cut the cake, cheers to your life, let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you, another great year for you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to